Good morning, good afternoon, good night. I'm Blackbright and I'm broadcasting out of the UK. Now, I like to put this preface that I'm not an immigration lawyer. I have no professional qualifications. I kind of analyse. I'm quite analytical, so I look at a lot of different angles of things, and I just put my opinion out there, and it's just my opinion. And I like to say the system is devious sometimes, because you know what, with every successful strategy, you need an element of deviousness. So that's why it's so important to be alert. And that is why I alert you to different aspects or different sides of things that we might take for granted. Now, today I wanted to ask the question: should Shamima Begum be treated as a child or an adult? Now, what is a child? Well, what do they consider a child in the UK? Well, a child is someone, I would think, who needs protection, who needs guidance, who's quite immature, can't make logical decisions or rational decisions, or can't even make important decisions. They don't have the development to do that. So for me, that is what a child is as opposed to an adult. Now, when we're thinking about Shamima Begum, we have to ask, first of all, was she in her right frame of mind when she left the country as a child? If she was groomed, that means she was in the emotional hands of a third party or someone else. And if that person who was grooming her and who she built her trust in told her that she should try and get her sister's passport, I assume her sister's older than her, to use it, that would mean that she wasn't totally responsible for her actions as a child, because grooming is very, very sneaky, and the person who's being groomed doesn't really know it. It does normally mean that there's something lacking in the home. And, you know, in dual nationality homes, you have a conflict with discipline, with tradition, and with the Western way of raising your children. In the Western way of raising your children, you're not allowed to hit them. You know, you have to reason with them. They've got a certain amount of freedom and liberation. Normally, parents are afraid that the police are going to be called, that their children are going to be taken away, that social service is going to get involved. So normally what they do is leave their children to their own devices, to, you know, whether it's on laptops, whether it's on phones, and anything could have happened during that period. Now, did Shamima Begum realise what she was getting into, or did she just think she was meeting a fella who said he loved her or whatever, and she was going off for this romantic rendezvous with her other two friends? We don't really know the background, do we? We don't really know the background. I mean, it seems as though the person she went off with and became a child bride with had, you know, they had 3 kids together. Well, so the sources say. They say 2 died of malnutrition. We've only got those sources we haven't got anything really to verify that. But anyway, she had 3 children for this person, which we can only assume means that that relationship was relatively successful until he went into jail or whatever happened to him. Some say he's dead, some people say he's in jail. I don't know what the truth is. The fact of the matter is, I'm wondering whether or not, if she's a child, whether she was totally responsible for the decision she made, and whether she knew the implications of the decision she was making. Now, if we treat her as an adult, as she is now, 19, we could say she's guilty of treason. She was premeditated in taking her sister's passport. And we could say that her actions in Syria that's why she's non-repentant as an adult. We could also argue that maybe she was indoctrinated to become cold and callous. And if that's the case, what does that mean when now she's over here? What does that mean she's capable of doing? Now, Savage Javid has every right, if to take away the citizenship of someone that is deemed to be a threat to the country. Also, if you look at the passport, it does say, let me tell you what it says. The Britannic Majesty's Secretary of State requests and requires, in the name of Her Majesty, all those whom it concerns to allow the bearer to pass freely without let or hindrance, and to afford the bearer such assistance and protection as may be necessary. Now, if we say, well, we can only say because she left on her sister's passport, which is a crime in itself. But then it means that the UK government do not have to offer her the right to protection because she didn't use her passport. If she'd used her passport, maybe she could have been protected, but she didn't, and she went on somebody else's passport. So even though I'm going to read this because it's, I just want to make sure I read it right. Under international law, you cannot revoke a status and render a subject stateless. But under UK law, it is the duty of the Home Secretary to secure the border and revoke citizenship if he feels that an individual is a threat to national security. The passport can also be revoked if the person is a spy. We don't know what she's coming back to do. Under the Human Rights Convention, though, you cannot deny a passport under Article 8. So the thing is that, number one, was she a child? Who was totally unaware of the implications of her actions? Did she believe she was online dating? A child would require guidance and protection from harm, including psychological harm, and so therefore she should be treated with some leniency. Or, as an adult, that would have meant it was premeditated, stealing her sister's passport, getting married, taking the trip, having no remorse. And in that case, if she knew exactly what she was doing, by going to Syria, which is one of those countries where we're not supposed to be associated with or go to, then of course she'd need to be punished to the full extent of the law if it is treason, but then she'd need 2 witnesses. Treason was punishable by death in 1948, but since then, more recently in the 80s, it's lifetime imprisonment. So I think she's damned if she does or she's damned if she doesn't, because she's in a refugee camp in Syria. I'd imagine it's not very healthy. I'd imagine it's not very clean. I'd imagine that maybe even her 3rd child is vulnerable to death through malnutrition like the first 2, and she could eventually die herself. So whether you treat her as a child or an adult, her options don't look very good either way. But I was just putting that thought out there. If you've got anything to say, I'd be glad to hear it. Bye-bye.